presentations. We're going to receive an update on the planned closure of San Bruno Avenue, September 20th to 30th, 2013, for the construction of the CalTrain grade separation. Raphael.
Thank you very much. So what I'm going to do tonight is just go through a shortened version of what was presented last week to the general public as part of our open house on exactly this topic. But I'm going to just focus on two aspects of it. One, just a quick status update of where we are on the construction, and then I'm going to really just focus on the closures themselves. So one of them was actually completed last weekend, so we're actually now down to two closures. There's also handouts at the front, if anyone's interested, showing details for both the closures, as well as there's a series of questions that came up during the public meeting, and we've attempted to answer those the best we could, and those are also available if anybody wants to take a look at those. So as I mentioned, I'm just going to give a quick status overview, talk about the upcoming road closures, and then just take any questions that you may have. So once again, why are we doing this? First and foremost, safety improvement. We're enhancing the safety for not just the driving public, but also for pedestrians, cyclists, etc. In addition, there's some other benefits from the grade step, improving access to the school, reducing wait times behind gates that are no longer going down and causing delays, and improving emergency response times, and just generally helping the City of San Bruno with the revitalization of the downtown section. So again, I'm sure everybody realizes what we're doing to do this. We're constructing 3 separate automobile grade separations and 3 pedestrian-only automobile. It'll be on the other side soon. So really quickly, end of May of this year, trains up top, which is a huge milestone for us, and hopefully for those of you in the community, you can already see improvements, I hope, in the traffic. More to come in that. The final street lowerings, which is what I'm here to talk about tonight, will take place this month. At that point, the work is going to shift almost entirely to the platform. So we'll start doing all the work on the northbound platform. This is the section that was on top of the shoe fly. So the reason why we have to stage it this way, as everyone remembers, is we were running trains on that shoe fly until May. So essentially what we did on the east side, we're going to have to do on the west side. Now, I got that backwards. On the west side, we're going to do on the east side, and that takes us through to early spring of 14 for project completion. So road closures. So we're lowering the streets to their final configuration. We're also repaving all the transitions and tie-ins in their final configuration. So that means striping, sidewalk, curb and gutter, etc. Again, the reason why we had to do this at this juncture is we were limited because of the shoe fly and how steeply we could drop the grade. Now the shoe fly is out of the way, we can go ahead and lower everything to its final condition. As many of you know, we sent out not one, but 2 separate notices for the road closures. Unfortunately, we jumped the gun a little bit. We thought we could do it in August. Unfortunately, when we did lower Angus, we found the material was not as good as we'd hoped. So the soil we hauled out was actually of a lesser quality. What that means is I've got to take out more soil to put in more rock so that the material will end up with as good a road as we designed for. So that's why we got delayed. That's why we're talking about this in September. Street closures are going to be phased to minimize impacts to motorists. The notices did go out. We did have a public meeting last week to let the community know and discuss any of their concerns. There will be changeable message boards up at El Camino as well as at the off-ramp of San Bruno, and I'll talk about that in a second when I look at the big closure. And then just to point out, San Mateo closure did already occur, so that was completed last weekend. So this is the first of the 2 closures. This is this weekend's closure, San Bruno at San Mateo. I just want to point out this has changed slightly from what was presented last week. We've come up with an improvement on the closure. So the mailer and the discussion that went out to the community showed a complete closure of the northbound section of San Mateo, as well as the whole corner of San Mateo and San Bruno. Working with the contractor, we've come up with a way to do it in 2 pieces. So it's still the same total duration, meaning we'll close it Friday night and we'll open it Monday AM. But by doing it in 2 pieces, we'll allow traffic to be continuous up San Bruno. So we're not actually going to close San Bruno, even though it says San Bruno closed up at the top. We're closing a lane on San Bruno. So let me just real quickly go through the detours, and I'm going to hit the vehicular portion first, and then I'm going to kind of hit on pedestrians and their detour. So this section will be flagged, so it'll be 1 lane for both ways. So traffic going east or west on San Bruno will be flagged through here. There'll be slight delays as people queue up waiting to go through, but traffic will be allowed through. Likewise, San Mateo, there's going to be 1-way flagging through this section. So basically, most motorists shouldn't notice much difference from where we are today. So what will happen Friday night is this section up here. So that's the east side of San Bruno, San Mateo will be closed, and then flagging will begin on the opposite lane. Then sometime Sunday, really early Sunday morning, that'll change, and traffic will then shift to the opposite side of the road, and we'll begin to work on the opposite side. Again, early Monday morning traffic, we'll see this open to traffic for the rush. For pedestrians, it's a little bit simpler because the sidewalks on the opposite side of the street will remain open. So what we'll have is signs up at 2nd Avenue and back on this side of Huntington, which will say sidewalk closed up ahead, please use opposite sidewalk, and it will direct pedestrian traffic to cross the street and go around. So same basic scheme as with the vehicles. When one side's closed, pedestrians cross on the opposite side. Same story, roles reversed when the traffic switches. So this is September 13th through the 16th, so late Friday through Monday morning. This takes us to the more dramatic, what I call full closure of San Bruno, and that is essentially unchanged from what was shown to the public last week. And so, again, why do we have to close all San Bruno? It's not so much San Bruno itself, it's all the tie-ins for Huntington, and this whole section here has to be lowered in according to accommodate that lowering of San Bruno, and there was just no way to do it in pieces, because eventually you end up with a car going off a big drop-off, and we couldn't do that, honestly. So what does the detour look like? So, depends where you're coming from, but in general, if you're from out of town, if you're coming to the airport, if you're traveling from another city through San Bruno that week, we're going to ask that you detour and bypass the entire area and go up 380 to El Camino. So we'll have signs on both sides saying San Bruno closed at San Mateo, through traffic, please use 380 to 101. However, obviously there's people who still have business to conduct in town, or for whatever reason don't take our detour and decide that they're going to go up San Bruno either way. So we'll have local detours. What that will look like is essentially if you're on San Mateo, Huntington going southbound, your traffic is going to get detoured onto San Mateo. So San Mateo has been widened, so we'll have the full width San Mateo, and the right turn and the through motion will all be allowed. So there will be flaggers at San Mateo allowing traffic to go both north and south on San Mateo, and make left turns onto San Bruno. So if you're coming from South Linden, let's say, and you want to go to the freeway, you're still going to be able to make that turn. Likewise, if you're coming from the downtown and you want to get to the freeway, that's still accessible. What you won't be able to do is if you're coming from City Hall and you want to just go straight up San Bruno, then you're going to have to take the detour. So the detour will be signed to come up, I don't have it in very large there, but Mills, and then Mills to Euclid, Euclid to Huntington, up Scott. Once you're back on San Mateo, then again, you can make a left onto San Bruno, or you can continue down San Mateo, as the case may be. Coming the other way, it's the same exact detour in reverse. So if you're on the freeway and for whatever reason, or you're coming from one of the avenues and you want to get to City Hall, same thing in reverse. You come up San Bruno, you're going to make a right turn this time onto San Mateo, you're going to go over Scott, and you're going to come up Euclid to Mills, Mills to San Bruno. I should note that there will be parking restrictions for this 10-day period on both Euclid and Mills, one side only, so local parking will still be allowed on the opposite side. However, as you know, those are very narrow roads, and we're temporarily wanting to give people a little more space who are coming through there. Normally, you don't get a lot of traffic on Euclid. So let me talk for a second about pedestrian detour, what that looks like. So the dashed lines you see on this figure are pedestrian detours. And what they look like in general is if you're on San Bruno and you want to go to City Hall, you're coming from the school, let's say you're coming up 3rd, you would just go up San Mateo. However, the sidewalk detour would lead you all the way up to Keynes and back up Huntington. Because as part of this closure, we're actually going to be rebuilding the sidewalk on Huntington as well. So we actually can't detour traffic up there. That being said, there are 2 businesses that are actually within that impacted area, and access is going to be maintained the whole time to those businesses. So we'll allow pedestrian access along that section of sidewalk. We're also going to allow vehicular, so there'll be a flagger present, and signs will show that businesses are still open. So we'll still allow vehicles to the little mini mall there, or the adjacent, I guess the pizza place up on the corner. Access will still be provided. If you're a pedestrian and you're on the other side, you can either do that same exact detour in reverse, or similar to the vehicles, you'll be directed up Mills, Euclid, and up Scott Street. That's another option, depending where you're going. Obviously, if you're going north, that's probably preferable. So that's the detours for the main closure. The good news is this is the last full closure for the project. Once we're done this, there'll continue to be lane closures as we pave and do striping and things like that. However, this is the last time we'll have to completely close the street as part of this project. The other good news is when this is open, San Bruno will be in its full width configuration. That includes left turn pockets at San Bruno, San Mateo, and left turn pocket onto Huntington, which should really hopefully free up traffic a little bit. Because right now, anyone who wants to make that left, you've got people behind you waiting on you. Likewise, San Mateo will be paved on both sides. We've been constricting flow through basically half of what San Mateo is going to be. Will be in the full width from here on in. Contact info, any questions? We always like to give the contact info for public affairs. And then I can take any questions you might have this time.
Any questions for Rico?
Chair. If we at the meeting, I know some of those questions that were raised are within this handout from the meeting, which I appreciate some of the follow-up. We talked about lighting along First. There was also a gentleman that lived on Pine that had the same concern as far as lighting.
Yes.
So I'd like to see that also addressed when you're reviewing that. I know some of the other aspects about the parking and the curbs and streets. That was some of the residents, I think, concern as far as the condition that they're in. And if I'm not mistaken, what you had said is there was an assessment taken prior to the project. There will be an assessment taken after the project, street by street, and anything that has been nicked, dinged, damaged, etc., would then be taken care of.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. Yes. So we're going to be meeting with the city starting next week to start going through, as you said, street by street, sidewalk by sidewalk, and seeing exactly where are the areas of concern, where are the areas where construction traffic. It's not just whether we damaged it in construction activity. It's additional traffic volume, larger vehicles on the city street. If we caused it, we'll fix it. I mean, that's been our agreement since the start, and we intend to honor that. And it's just going to get down into the details. We're going to meet with staff and specifically go through, like I said, on a street-by-street basis. And then to answer your other question on First Avenue, yes, we're going to actually bring in a consultant to do a lighting study in that area to just analyze what kind of an issue we have, if we do have an issue, and what are potential mitigation strategies. We didn't really look at it as a problem, but as it was brought up to me in the presentation, I completely hear what the public is saying. I mean, that's, you know, there were individuals who were getting secondhand benefits from some of the lighting at Artichoke Joe's, and now that somebody built a great step in the way, that may no longer be the case. So that being the case, same thing. If we've changed a condition, if we've made something worse, we want to look at it, we want to make it good.
And I appreciate that because obviously there is wear and tear on the roadway and all that from all the construction, so obviously there's deterioration. One of the things too, and you addressed the other items, I won't go into each one of them, is at the end, when it is finally done and they cut the ribbon, one person was kind enough to say, I hope the neighborhood's invited, maybe even if it's neighborhood barbecue.
Yeah.
Between this, obviously, that area neighborhood has gone through much and a lot. I know it firsthand a little bit, and so I think that was one of the things between the city and your agency to make it a celebratory event, and I thank you for their understanding and patience.
Right, no, absolutely, and I think that was an excellent suggestion, and obviously we'll be talking with the city as we get closer to cutting a ribbon for this thing, but I mean, as you know, this has been a huge project for CalTrain, and I know it's been a huge, sometimes difficult for the city and for the residents. And yeah, we want to celebrate what will be, I hope, a very successful conclusion to it. But we also want to thank everybody for their patience, because I mean, the public has been very understanding. By and large, almost everyone has been really positive and understanding of the fact that we've got to do these kinds of temporary inconveniences, but it's ultimately for a better San Bruno when it's all said and done. So yeah, I think it's an excellent idea.
Anyone else,
Chair?
Irene?
I'm very concerned about the loss of 42 street parking spots. When did that happen?
Yeah. So I can talk about that. So you're talking about at First Avenue.
It says here 48 spaces. It's going to go from 48 spaces to 6. It's the street parking along the east side of First Avenue will remain the same. Okay, that's the side where the people have their houses. As previously, parking on the west side of First Avenue will reduce from 48 spaces to 6.
Correct.
So you say it so casually. It's 42 parking spaces in
Right.
a part that's hugely impacted already.
Right.
And then you say, or whoever answered this, that they're going to be added parking on Huntington, Keynes, and San Mateo Avenue. But that doesn't help First Avenue people and the surrounding people there.
Right. No, it's a very legitimate concern. I mean, obviously,
It's more than a concern.
I completely understand what a premium parking is in that area. I mean, many of the residential units in there have multiple vehicles, and it gets very crowded. I completely understand why someone would be concerned about that. Let me just say two things. One, the total amount of parking will increase as part of this project, street parking. So,
but not for First.
I understand that, but the total amount does improve, so that should give some relief to First Avenue. Another idea that was brought up at the meeting, which we'll be talking with the city, but I personally think is a good idea, is we're going to charge for parking at our lot right up the street, and we know that not everybody likes to pay for parking, and so one thing you can do to discourage CalTrain passengers from parking on the avenue would be, I don't know, some kind of local parking restriction. But to answer your fundamental point, I guess, which is that, wow, that's a lot of parking you're cutting out of there. We can take a look at it. We can see. I mean, what we have done is those are non-standard lanes there today. We understand it's a pre-existing condition, but when we redid it, we looked at it like any other street design, and we said, what is the standard width parking? What is the standard width street? And we designed it accordingly. That being said, you're the city. You have jurisdictional authority over that. If there's something that can be done about the width of that street and in return get that parking back, we're happy to do that.
Okay, but I'm totally confused. We looked at several pictures that showed the landscaping on First Avenue.
Right.
On the west side of that, and it had some bulb outs, and it looked like it lost maybe 4 or 5 parking things. It
Okay.
did not ever say 42,
Okay.
to my memory. So how come it's suddenly 42? That's huge.
I agree with you.
So I don't understand. It's just like, why is this suddenly here? So in the pictures, it never showed that. It showed parking on the west side, it
Right.
showed the landscaping, and then now it's not, there's no parking. So there's not going to be any parking except 6 spaces on that whole First Avenue
On the west side.
on the west side.
That's correct. But, again, I mean, if that is an issue, and I can understand why it would be,
But why so late in the day? I mean, why now? We've been looking at this for years.
well, I mean, the plans have been available for 3 years. I mean, I don't know, it's just now. I think the issue has been that, our collective focus has been on other aspects of this work. First Avenue has always been an issue, but all of a sudden, we're getting to the point, we're coming towards the closing, months of the project, and we start looking at the specifics of First Avenue, and that's when it really got raised as an issue by the community, and I completely understand it as an issue. I'm not trying to be trite about it or say it's not a big deal to lose 42 spaces. I agree with you. It is a big deal, and I'm offering potential solutions for it. But to say this is it new? No. The plans have been the plans for 3+ years. I mean,
May I?
Through the chair, I mean, I'm just going to chime in. I know the city manager is waiting to speak also, possibly the mayor. I think we need to go back to what the plan was previous to 3 years ago, because, there was a lot of discussion of how First Avenue was going to be affected.
Right.
We did thoroughly discuss how we were going to treat the street. I mean, and this was well before there was a 4-track option.
Right.
I mean, we knew we had an area to landscape and to, and to treat, and the parking was a major part of the discussion. So this is, I mean, it's almost surreal to think that, that we're losing all these parking spaces. Obviously, we're not just talking about CalTrain travelers, we're talking about a neighborhood.
Correct.
So,
And I hear what you're saying, and I think the good news is what I'm saying, and maybe I'm not doing a good job of articulating it, is we haven't built that curb. There's time to fix it if that is an issue. But in order for me to fix it, I would have to have some approval from the city to basically construct what's there today. I mean, the width of that road, if it's acceptable today and it's acceptable in a future application, then we could fit every one of the parking spaces that we currently have, with maybe the loss of one where the bulb out is for the crossing. But in general, you would keep all the parking on the west side.
So if I could, just for clarity for people, what you're saying is that prior to any construction, the location of that curb that was there prior to any construction, for you to put it back to where that is a non-compliant or the amount of space for lanes and parking is not compliant with.
That's correct.
Okay.
But when we say compliant, I mean, ultimately, you're the jurisdictional authority that can grant waivers, can say, yes, it is compliant. I mean, there's any number of ways. I mean, it's there today.
So at some point, some traffic engineer, some designer made a decision saying, we've got X amount of width for the east side of First Avenue, and then we have to have a certain amount of lane width
Correct.
for two-way highway, and then we didn't have enough for parking on the east side.
That's exactly correct. And
Okay.
obviously, we didn't do a very good job of bringing that to everybody's attention and saying, hey, look at this.
Think so?
And I agree.
Yeah.
It's an
Okay.
issue. I mean,
Well, it's not a deal breaker, and I think the city manager is going to chime in, and we're going to look at it.
So, thank you for allowing me to speak. My suggestion is that this is obviously an important issue that really would benefit, I think, from our ability to actually look at the schematics and to understand the issues. And we will bring this issue back as a separate item for consideration by the City Council. I think that Mr. Bowen has been clear that it may not have been recently and adequately vetted with the City Council in particular and with the community. And it sounds as if, my hearing of this situation tonight, that there are decisions and choices that can be made still in the completion of the work that remains. So we will bring this item back to you for separate consideration and discussion,
Okay, and
if that meets the council's needs.
No, I think that's a good idea. And when you do, I'd like a special focus on emergency response as far as changing the roadway.
Okay, understood.
All right, any other questions for Raphael? Thank you very much.
Thank you.